The Exorcist movie from 1973 is such a famous movie, it's kind of insane to even consider there's a sequel being released right now, as opposed to Halloween, Friday the 13th, or Nightmare on Elm Street, which all had gradual remakes and reboots and sequels to their beloved popular franchises. There was something different about Exorcist. Maybe how, unlike the films that were made during the slasher boom, The Exorcist is a deeply disturbing, highly religious film released in the early 70s based on a novel. And the film is famous not only for its difficult production and controversy upon release, but with what a groundbreaking and effective horror film it was, essentially telling the story of a priest's crisis of faith in the midst of trying to save a girl who's become possessed. Now, the movie was extremely graphic and was noted for its violence. They even had barf bags presented at the movie theaters, apparently. But this movie launched a whole subgenre of films. The possession trope has been done to death, especially in the modern era. And there are good films, your Possessions, your Sinisters, your Willy Wonderlands even, but there are a slew of not-so-great possession films that come to mind, such as The Last Exorcism, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, all those shitty movies that they just make like every year. They come all the time and they cash in on the same trope, usually a single parent with a kid who becomes the unwitting host of some demon, which allows the kid to do a disturbing parkour and make weird-ass sounds the whole movie, which provides plenty of jump scares. This is the trope that's always coming out and always has some priest roped in by the end to save them. And ever since The Exorcist, which came out 50 years ago, there's really been nothing truly inspiring or interesting or a new angle on this same recycled story. And upon hearing that David Gordon Green, the director of this very stale, very simply plotted Halloween reboot trilogy, would be handling this, I had a feeling it might not get too bold or be as great as a film like The Exorcist should. Now, David Gordon Green is a strong director. He actually does make choices here that make the film's aesthetic and looming tension much more disturbing and captivating than any of his Halloween films. He knows when to cut and when to edit, when to make a jarring transition, such as a quick cut to a dying horse, jackhammers drilling in the street, penetrating conversation, the sound of car horns blaring, play before a next scene, giving you a start. Some of this is a bit of cheating with editing, mostly because the entire film by itself really isn't that scary, and he puts so many jump scares into just the editing, the transitions. I think there's an okay film buried in here, but there's a lot of excess baggage that just totally weighs it down. Now, the ideas of two girls being possessed is kind of funny. I saw one take of this, which was, who was the dumbass studio exec who thought, holy shit, two kids possessed? Like, shut up and take my money, you know? I mean, I thought that could work, honestly. It's just there's so many characters, so much to unpack, that splitting the focus between all the characters really leaves you feeling more disconnected than connected to the characters. The central storyline follows Leslie Odom Jr. as a photographer whose daughter goes missing with her friends when they go walking in the woods for some reason after school. When they return, they're acting fucking creepy. It's very rushed. The intro to the daughter character, Angela, Leslie Odom Jr.'s daughter, she and her friend barely get any screen time before the possession. They're on screen for 5 minutes, barely, before they're possessed, and you don't even feel like you get a chance to really invest in their story. Then so much of the runtime is dedicated to building up the world, which isn't terrible, but the actual scares and the meat of the story is left lacking because there's so much being built up. Take, for instance, the first Exorcist, the scene with Reagan spider walking down the stairs, interrupting her mother's party, killing her mom's friend, the director Burke Dennings. All of this is disturbing because there's such a gradual reveal that something is truly wrong with the girl. And here, we get bits of this, but we barely spend so much time focusing on one girl being possessed. It's like a montage of different moments, and some of them honestly feel more funny than scary. There's a scene earlier in the film where Angela's just been possessed and she returns home where she keeps following her dad into the bathroom, and it was just so funny to me. I saw this in a packed theater at Times Square, and honestly, my audience was pretty game. There were a lot of people laughing at many of these scenes, and as opposed to being actively scared. And then there's this church scene that's also kind of parody-like where the girl starts tearing up the Bible with her feet and walking down the aisle. It's visually interesting, sure, but the whole context of the scene just feels odd when we really haven't been focused on this one character. And it's just got so much going on, and it feels you kind of leaving a little unfocused. Which leads me to the worst part of the film, the glue of the movie, that at the same time is kind of like a poison, killing it slowly, which is making Ellen Burstyn return and trying to connect this to the original movie. It just is completely unnecessary and totally took me out of it. And also, the entire film didn't need her at all to return. On top of that, it just takes the movie's identity and kind of makes it stop and slow down and makes you feel like you just have to think about the original for a minute and then move on. But in a way, that just ruins the movie even more. It's just like, why do we need to think about this? She's in it for 5 minutes and then she's not, and it's just really stupid. And really, I thought that the final Exorcism is okay, but it's nothing special. I mean, we got the Pope's Exorcist this year, we got Evil Dead Rise, and even those were more enjoyable and just had the typical deep voice and grimy, dark-colored CG. It's nothing too impressive, and this was shot for $30 million, which is kind of cheap and impressive if you think about it, but you really think they'd make a better looking film with the exorcism being the best part of the movie, the key part. But then again, this is from the man who made Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and honestly, it should be expected that wasn't going to be excellent. Personally, it was just very lackluster, very generic to be holding that Exorcist title, and I think they're going to probably make another one in 2025, and I hope if they do make one, they just don't attach it to anything prior. They just make a good script. I know the script's already probably written, but I really hope they can just not focus on sequels or trying to make something connected to the original. Just make a good story about possession, and honestly, it should be good. They're just trying to do so much in this film, and it's honestly really bad because of that.